What if the most dangerous truth a system could discover is the truth about the human heart under pressure? Not a military secret, not an enemy cipher, but a simple, brutal report on loyalty. A document so explosive that one of the most ruthless regimes in history chose to bury it, hoping it would disappear forever. This isn't a theory. It is the story of a forbidden mirror held up to the face of human nature in its darkest hour. And what it reflected was a truth so uncomfortable, so shattering to the myths we build our worlds upon, that power itself was terrified of it. Today, we unearth that buried truth, not to judge the ghosts of the past, but to understand the shadows they cast upon our present. The story begins in the cold, calculating mind of Heinrich Himmler, the architect of Nazi ideology, a man obsessed with building a perfect society on a foundation of absolute loyalty. For men, the path was clear: sacrifice, duty, a hero's death on the battlefield. For women, the role was sacred: the guardians of the hearth, the unwavering, faithful heart of the nation, the moral anchor for the warrior far from home. This was the myth. The entire propaganda machine was built on this image of the stoic, loyal German woman, her love a fortress against the horrors of war. But Himmler, a man consumed by paranoia, needed to know if the myth was real. He commissioned a secret study, an internal SS security matter. His orders were simple: investigate the loyalty of German women to their men at the front. The team was given unprecedented access to letters, to interviews, to the raw, uncensored data of the human soul at war. They were told to deliver the unvarnished truth. And the truth they found was a psychological bomb. It shattered the central pillar of the regime's ideology. Imagine you are a young soldier. We will call him Carl. You are 19, freezing in a foxhole outside Stalingrad. The world has shrunk to mud, fear, and the endless thunder of artillery. Your only link to sanity, to the person you once were, is a photograph of a woman named Anna. Her letters are your religion. They speak of pride, of missing you, of waiting. You read them until the ink blurs and the paper softens in your hands. Then one day, a different letter arrives. It is from your mother. Her words are careful, like someone walking on glass. She tells you Anna has been seen with a high-ranking party official, a man who will never see the front, a man who can offer safety, warmth, and food in a time of scarcity. The letter ends with two words: be strong. In that moment, the cold of the foxhole becomes the cold of the grave. The abstract idea of a fatherland turns to ash in your mouth. You realize you are not dying for a nation. You are dying for an illusion. This was not an isolated story. According to the buried report, it was an epidemic. The study revealed that infidelity was rampant, but it wasn't random. It followed a chillingly precise pattern. Loyalty was not being given to the soldier in the trench, the man offering sacrifice. It was flowing toward men who represented power and immediate security. Party officials, factory managers, and even foreign prisoners of war who could provide scarce goods like coffee or chocolate. It was a brutal, primal calculus of survival. The report coldly concluded that a woman's loyalty under extreme duress was not to a man nor to a nation. It was to the principle of advantage. One case study spoke of a woman whose husband was missing in action. Within months, she was living with a local official. She wrote to the Red Cross and asked them to stop searching for her husband, calling it a waste of resources. When a neighbor confronted her, she replied with a line that echoed through the vaults of the SS archives: "A living dog is better than a dead lion." This was not the heroic woman of the propaganda posters. This was the human shadow, stripped of all sentimentality. This was the raw, unspeakable truth of survival. The report proved that the state had built its entire war effort on a psychological lie. It demanded everything from its men: their youth, their bodies, their lives, and in return, It could not guarantee the one thing they fought for. When Himmler read the final draft, his fury was not directed at the women. It was directed at the report itself. The truth was not a problem to be solved. It was an inconvenience to be hidden. The document was classified as a secret Reich matter. It was locked away in the deepest archives, an attempt to erase a reality that was too dangerous to acknowledge. And here is the dark realization. The most terrifying secret the Nazis buried was not about female nature. It was about their own system. It was the tacit admission that the entire structure of honor, duty, and sacrifice they demanded from men was built on a foundation they knew was fragile. The greatest threat to power isn't rebellion, it is clarity. The state was willing to send millions of men to their deaths for an ideal it privately knew to be a fantasy. The contract was a fraud. This act of burying the truth is more profound than the truth itself, because it reveals a universal principle. Systems of power will always protect the myths that serve them, even if it means sacrificing the very people they claim to protect. The war ended. The report remained buried, and millions of men began the long walk home, unaware they were returning to the scene of a psychological crime. They were ghosts returning to a world that had forgotten them. They found their cities in ruins, but the deeper ruin was in their homes. Wives were gone. Children called another man father. The trauma of the battlefield was met with the silent trauma of betrayal. These men became the silent generation, the emotionally hollow fathers who rebuilt a nation with their hands because they could no longer speak from their hearts. The state betrayed them, the peace offered them no justice, and their pain was given no name. They were expected to swallow their grief and get back to work. This is not just a story about a forgotten past, it is a mirror. The pattern did not end in 1945. It simply wears a different uniform now. Modern systems make the same implicit contract. Sacrifice your youth at a corporate altar. Grind yourself into dust for a promise of security, respect, and loyalty. But that loyalty is just as conditional. When you falter, when you lose your status, when you show vulnerability, the mechanisms of disposability click into place. The machine changes, but the sacrifice remains the same. Understanding this is not about blame. It is not about bitterness. It is about liberation. It is the moment you realize that your worth cannot be derived from a system that views you as a resource. It cannot be dependent on the validation of others, a validation that can be withdrawn at any moment. The liberation comes when you stop playing a game with rules designed for you to lose. Your purpose is not to be a hero in a story written by others. It is to become the author of your own, to build an inner fortress that no betrayal can breach, to forge a meaning that is yours alone, one that cannot be taken from you. The darkest truth the powerful ever buried was that the human spirit is the ultimate currency, and they will spend it without a second thought. Knowing that truth is your armor, building a life in spite of it, is your victory. The silence is finally broken. Darkness reveals what comfort hides.